Just a question that's come up. Can you define mental illness? And I've heard about depression, but can I be mentally ill without even knowing it? What are the signs?
You can. So again, defining mental illness is like trying to define physical illness. There are many different aspects to it. The main ones that people talk about are depression and anxiety. Those are the main ones that men present with. And again, you can go into the symptoms of each. But can you have a mental illness and not know it? Well, yeah, you can. You actually can. Again, if I lack sort of, and males are almost taught this, as we mentioned earlier, that emotional awareness, that self-awareness, I can recognize maybe in vague terms that I don't feel okay, but I might not be able to pinpoint that as, you know, anxiety or depression. And again, it's for me, and I don't like to sort of look at the negative side of mental health. I view it as the same type of continuum as physical health. If I don't feel okay here, if I'm feeling flat down and so forth, I want to check that out too. When I'm physically unwell, I don't know what that's about. I don't know if I'm not a doctor. I don't know if I got mumps or flu or, you know, just a bit hungover. Equally, if I'm not okay here, if I'm spinning in my wheels, I feel flat, I feel down, different to normal. For me, check it out. Just go check it out. First point of call, go to a GP. You don't have to go straight to a psychiatrist. In fact, you're better off not. Go to your GP. And so forth. Let them actually start helping you to understand what it is. Don't go self-diagnosing. Dr. Google does not know all.
Okay, we've got a number of comments that I'll just pick from. I won't get them all because I'm conscious now of time. The Black Dog Institute has an app, Headgear. It's aimed at blue-collar people. So thank you, Kevin, for that one. I think it's Ian said, thank you. I love this topic. I think it really needs to be talked about more, and good on you for all doing this. Every time it's talked about helps someone more. Thank you. What a brilliant idea. Reaching out is the hardest part. Trucking industry is about to launch a program later this year called Healthy Heads in Trucks and Sheds, which I think is another great, that's a great initiative. The transport industry, people spending a lot of time in trucks, trains, buses, planes, I think we mentioned earlier, Greg. So thanks for the feedback and all the comments. Airline Pilots Association New Zealand, PAN, Peer Assistance Network. So there's some people are sharing some places that can help. Period between medication is terrible.
Can be.
Character, not just competence. Yes, absolutely. Supervisors tell me that he's never had depression, so he can't help. So that's interesting. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why people
abdicating your humanness.
Yeah, probably people don't talk up because if they don't have the trust or the relationship to think that they'll get a proper response or get ridiculed. Definitely seeing a shift now from CEO to emerging leaders. Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Kelly?
I just put that in there, that little link there to Form Today. Rob Stevenson, who's in the UK, came up with this idea of doing a form score. And he puts it out of 10, going, where's my mental health today? How do I feel? And it's a really good way of going, you're not telling people about what's going on for you. You're not delving into anything that you don't want to reveal. You're just saying, this is where I am. And it changes how people...
I've seen someone shared on LinkedIn a while ago, like a grid of 16 boxes, and it had all the different emotions where they are from extremes to corners, and they would start their meeting by putting their face in the appropriate sector, which I thought was interesting. I've got a comment here from Jetha Defapura from Vative, who said, Jeff, please feel free to share the Let's Talk link. So Jetha runs a Let's Talk group, and with the attendees, he's got the link in there, and we're happy to share that. Thanks, Jetha. So from Tom, policy can even be intimidating. Some might feel they're forced to speak up and therefore fake it. So you can't actually force people into sharing information and personal information.
Or should you?
Nor should you, yeah. In the introduction, Clive said human reaction came late and always afterwards. May I say most corrective actions are about mitigating the consequence of unwell mental health instead of avoiding reaching this stage and putting necessarily defences well ahead. Thanks, Mustafa. A wonderful microskill website created during the pandemic and still growing, maintainingmentalfitness.com. Have a look at that. Are you okay? Yeah, mate.
Yeah, mate. That's the danger. Yeah.
Okay, look, I might leave it there for a little bit. We've got more comments to get through, but what I might do now is jump back into this menti.com a minute, and we'll get through some more of these, just so we can keep putting on with the discussion. So I'll open up the next one. So let's consider the workplace. I think we've talked about some of this stuff. So you might need to refresh your menti.com. Okay, interesting. We're seeing some interesting curves there with extremes at one end and the other. So they're just not a thing. Guys, what do you think about that? Just not a thing and closet talk only.
Yeah, so back to Rob's question for are things changing? That would indicate maybe not as fast as we'd like, hey? It's still...
Yeah, I'd agree. It's
still quite low.
Yep.
I mean, just not a thing. In other words, we don't talk about it at all, right?
Yeah, that's I intended that to be, we just don't even acknowledge it, that it exists. Yeah. And the other one is closet talk. Well, you can talk about it, but you dare not.
Yeah. Which suggests there's a lack of psychological safety. There's still some mistrust around that.
Yes. Some good comments coming
I think
through
I see
too.
that a lot, Clive, to be honest, is like at some of the larger employers I worked at, it's like they talk about it because I'm sure they've read it in a book or they've seen it somewhere as part of this leadership stuff. And yet it's very much, they haven't taught leaders how to have those conversations. And they also haven't created that psychological safety where you're able to actually speak up or you feel comfortable speaking up with the leader. And so, I get emails since COVID started, I got emails that said like, we wanted to talk about mental health because we acknowledge that it's a stressful time for you, but yet the conversations aren't happening in any meaningful way, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, to be fair, I think it could be quite terrifying for some old school male leaders. As we roll out programs like Are You Okay and try to build psychological safety, what if you ask, are you okay? And somebody says no? I think that terrifies a lot of guys. Now what? And again, we need to be very careful with it and mindful of that doesn't mean all of a sudden all our leaders have got to become counsellors and therapists. That's not what it's about. And if somebody says, yeah, I'm not okay, it doesn't mean you have to solve all their problems. It just means, great, now they're opening up. Thank them for that. Acknowledge their courage in doing that. Let them know that you are there for them if they ever want to have a chat about this, and let them know that there are resources available. You don't have to fix everything. Okay. So I think you're right, Rob. I think some leaders they're scared.
Well, we train a lot of new leaders, people who are emerging into leadership roles, and we've run courses on it for years. But one of the things we find, and I've found throughout my career, is that particularly trades and production people, they get taken, the best doers off the shop floor, the most capable people get taken out of there, put into a leadership role with no training or development. So we're expecting those people to morph into a leader and be emotionally aware of how to actually lead people and support people, and it just doesn't happen. So I think, to your point, Clive, I think it could be the trigger of just knowing enough without being a counsellor or any of that stuff, but just knowing enough to ask a real question and say, okay, well, how would you feel if we try and get some help, and
Yeah.
and let them be aware of the support systems that are available, and it might be a conduit to then get HR or senior management involved to make that happen. So I think
Spot on, Jeff.
we've got to cut some slack for people that you don't, being a leader of any level doesn't make you a psychologist or a
No.
counsellor.
And let's be fair to our supervisors. As you say, Jeff, anybody who's worked in mining, I think oil and gas construction too, would know that a guy was elevated to a supervisor role, not because of his people skills, it was because he was a great operator, right? And then we just assume that this new leader will, have the people skills to run a good toolbox talk or start a shift meeting or deal with those challenges.
Yeah.
Be fair, give them the skills they need to be able to do that.
I can see Rob grinning his head off there because, he's in the same sort of fields I am.
Yeah.
And I've seen the best, most capable tradespeople in, like pure craftsmen get taken out of there and put in, say, a maintenance planner role or a supervisor role, and they're like a fish out of water, honestly. So you've weakened both levels, and you've actually taken your most capable tradesperson away from the shop floor. So buyer beware. It's sometimes the person who's the most frustrated on the shop floor may actually have the best leadership skills. You just got to put them in the right place.
I've had a very recent conversation around that as well, Jeff, with a long time contact, I suppose, but who got hold of me at the beginning of this week to ask me to come down and speak to their team. In the conversation around what they would like and how I could best support them, we started talking about the element of vulnerability, and we talked about that process of being promoted. And once you're in that role, suddenly you have all of this leadership responsibility, but you don't necessarily have the skills that you're able to then deal from a psychological standpoint with your reports. So we were talking about the element of sometimes it's there's a floodgate open when you're able to talk about your own issues and so forth. And he shared with me that that's exactly what had happened for him. He'd got to a point where he couldn't, he found it very difficult to cope, and shared that with his team. And the difference for him and his group was palpable. So he understands implicitly the power that we have in terms of talking about mental health. And hence, I'll be heading down to Wellington at the end of next week to talk to his team. Small teams, only 12 people. Yeah. But it's really important.